welcome to this session of Books and Beverages. And we have lots of new faces, so that's lovely. My name's Sue. I'm a quarter of the Books and Beverages team, and we put on these events every month. And Dawn is our newest recruit, so this is lovely, so be really nice to her.
Yeah, because I'm terrified.
No, you're not.
There's a camera up there.
Oh, don't worry about the camera. Yvonne and Dawn are going to be on YouTube. So in a few days, if you want to see the rerun, and you go to the Books and Beverages website and all that sort of stuff, there they will be, chatting away. So, without further ado, may I introduce our host, Dawn Treacher.
Hi.
Hi. And our guest today is Yvonne Battle-Felton. So welcome, Yvonne.
Thank you so much. Hello.
So, my name is Dawn. I'm a multi-genre writer as well. I write for children and I write cosy crime. But today's interview is about Yvonne, who has very kindly come to join us. She is a multi-genre writer. She's been longlisted for a Women's Prize for Fiction. She's been commended for her children's writing. She has a PhD in creative writing, facilitates writing workshops, hosts literary events, open mic sessions. Wow, that's quite a... You are originally from the US. You have a US publisher, I seem to remember, but you're now based here in the UK. So maybe we could start off by maybe telling us how you started writing or why you started writing in the beginning.
I was nosy as a kid, and so I was always telling stories, and that part of it was entertaining me. And then I want to say that it was entertaining other people, but I do feel like mostly it was entertaining me. So I would tell a story and try to tell other people, and I would be laughing through it. And I'd be like, and then the dog, and I'd be laughing because I knew what was going to happen. I already knew the story. And like, I feel like it was my mom that was like, can you just write it down? And finally I started like writing down the stories, which was great because I could then remember them and people could hear the whole thing. But I want to say as a kid, I started out as that kid. So I was reading and I was writing and I was still telling stories. And then as an adult, I kind of moved away from it at one point. I thought I was going to go right from high school, right to university. I wasn't sure what I was going to study, but I knew I was going to be wealthy.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
You had ambition.
I did, because I wanted to own an island. And it felt like the sort of thing that you couldn't do if you weren't also wealthy. And so I thought I was going to, so while I didn't know what I was going to do, I figured I was going to marry a mortician.
Why a mortician?
Because at one point I thought, okay, I like talking, I could be a psychologist. And if I marry a mortician, you know how you can't save everybody. Either way, we would end up getting paid. I wasn't the nicest young person, but I did feel like, you know what's good, like a good family business, like, someone who's trying to heal people, and then someone who's a little more practical, who's like, well, we didn't heal that one, but the funeral is $99.99. But so that was going to be my plan, and then I moved further and further away from writing, and I probably closer and closer to murder. And luckily, I found murder mystery, so that was a healthy kind of way. But when I found that writing stories again, so after life and after my mom had moved away when I was 16 because she needed to find herself. And she felt like she could find herself better if she wasn't a mom and if she was in Germany. So it meant a lot of upheaval for me. Mm-hmm. And everything I thought I knew about myself and everything I thought I knew about what I was going to be, it just changed. So I didn't write for like a really long time. And then I went back I grew up and moved and had kids and I was working and doing all that. And I was reading. And I was reading more books about people who loved people but did things that hurt them, which I needed at the time because it was a reminder that sometimes people you love do things that hurt and it's not about you. And then through that, I started finding my love to writing again. Like it was the reading and the reading books about characters who sometimes looked like me or sometimes no one was from where I was from. Nobody was from Sweetwater, New Jersey. But sometimes they were from like Baltimore, and I had moved from New Jersey to Maryland, and that made it a bit more like, oh, wait a minute, like real people love each other and hurt each other, and what can I write that kind of maybe explores how I feel? So I started writing then, but it was murder mystery then too.
So what was the first book you wrote then?
So the first, well, I don't know if I'd call it a book because it's not finished. It was a, I don't even remember the title of it. There were these 3 main characters, and they were all like loosely based on different versions of myself in varying relationships that they didn't want to be in, because I was in a relationship that I didn't want to be in. And I was trying to, I think, work that out without knowing I was trying to work it out. So all my characters were like all these various endings. And I was writing it and could not tell you now any of the main characters, any of their kind of tensions, because at the time I was writing short stories that I was loving because they were all murder mysteries.
Oh, right.
And they were all with, it's a shame because it's on YouTube, right? It's going to be on YouTube. But just for the people in the room, the main character of the short stories I was writing that were murder mysteries, they were characters who looked and like had habits a lot like my now ex-husband. So this poor character would walk up the steps and come down dead. Like he'd lay down, wake up dead. Go into the shower, come out dead. Like there was nothing this character could do to stay alive. And that was me working through the things that I was kind of grappling with.
Personal issues, really.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So that once I realized that, which wasn't like I realized it, I was in a class in Florence. I took creative nonfiction, and the only way you could take it is if you took a class you hadn't taken already. And I was doing my master's at Johns Hopkins. I was going the fiction route because stories were what I knew. Fiction felt safe. And I took creative nonfiction.
Okay.
And I feel like it definitely saved my ex-husband's life, because it was like, oh, there's other ways to end a relationship than murder. And there were other stories that I wanted to write. And you know what, once I realized, like, there was some healing going on, and once I knew, okay, this is what I want, and this is what I don't want, and this is how I want to move forward, I actually didn't need to write that book anymore. So I never finished it. And I don't, you know how some people are like, oh, the book that I'll return to, I don't need to go back to it. It's done its job, which was I needed to, I guess, explore how I was feeling and what I was thinking. And it's somewhere.
In a drawer?
Not even
On
in a
your
physical
computer?
drawer. We've like sold that house and everything. And it was like so many laptops ago. So it did the work it needed to do. And now it's somewhere in the universe. And maybe someone will stumble upon it and they'll need it at that time. And it'll do the work that it needed to do for me, for them.
Okay, so let's have a look at the books that you have had published. So you had the book Remembered, which I believe looks at slavery. Is that correct?
It does.
Described as powerful, haunting, and compassionate. And also Curdle Creek, which seemed to be a very different type of book, a gothic horror filled with mythology. Yeah?
Yeah.
So what questions led you to write your adult books?
So for Remembered, I wrote Remembered as my creative writing PhD. And I knew when I started both the PhD and the book, I was curious about how families found each other after the emancipation, but also what happened when you didn't. How did you go on? Like, I feel like a lot of things I read about, especially in the U.S., there's this idea that people were enslaved and then set free and then went on with life with some kind of like magical, I don't know, like forgiveness and forgetness pill. And it didn't matter what happened before and who they had loved before and who they had lost. And it was interesting to me because I would talk to people who were maybe a generation older, and they had an idea that after the emancipation, people found each other, that there were organizations that they were tasked with helping you to find people. But there were so many enslaved people that the organizations, you could only do but so much, even with goodwill. You could only find so many people. Some people some enslavers kept, records, but they didn't necessarily keep the person's name, like in that record. It might have been like, I don't know, woman 36, 3 kids, and then her skill, not her name. And then also when she was sold, that next person might have changed her name. So what does the record say? The record doesn't say like Abigail, formerly Abigail, now Rose, formerly 38. Now 29, like, do you know what I mean? Like nothing kind of keeps that track. So what happens to those people? And how do they find both who they are and all those loved ones. So part of my questions around that were, I'm a mom. And so in it, I was exploring motherhood and what are the boundaries, what are the limits, what are you willing to do for your children? So I had different characters who were willing to do some phenomenal things in order to save their children. And that was really interesting to me because there's a character in it called Mama Skins, and she was one of the older women on the plantation. And so for her group of friends, or her group of like family, however you kind of want to consider them, they had a plan that there would be no other enslaved children on that plantation. And so there's only a couple of ways that you can ensure that. And one of the ways that they did, they had like a poison that they would give one another and give like, so that they didn't have babies. And then when the slave owner bought or stole children to bring into slavery, those children didn't often live through the night. And there were people who would read it and they were like, oh my goodness, Mama Skins is, the one character I didn't like, it was her, because she was the one, she was kind of the leader, that she was the one in charge of this kind of thing. And they were like blaming her for it. And I thought that was really fascinating because nobody blamed the enslaver. Of the people who have spoken to me, no one has said, wow, they enslaved these people, they stole them, they took their families, they raped them, they beat them. Like nobody says like these were the people, but it's like her response in these circumstances, her response is the one that they blame. So for me though, remember, it's a bit of a horror story because like for me, every night I want my kids to know they're loved every day, and every night I want to be able to say, I love you. My oldest is 30. And I still love texting her to be like, hi, did you have a good day? Love you. And just, I always want them to know they're loved. What happens when you can't do that? So, yeah, so I explored that. And it was set in 1910 Philadelphia because I was born in Philadelphia. Not in 1910, but my favorite person in the world is my grandmother. And she was born in 1919, so also not 1910. But,
near enough.
well, it was near enough, and then also there was a riot in Philadelphia in 1910, and I thought, well, I'll use that as a tension to put my character in different places and see how they might respond. So it is about enslaved characters. It's about emancipation. It's about motherhood. The 1910 character was beaten by police for a crime he may or may not have committed, and it's all that story, all that love, all that hurt, all that pain. And my daughter read it during my PhD, and she's like, did he do it? And I'm like, who cares? Like, even if he had, it shouldn't be that he was beaten by police for it. It should have been that he went to court, and there was a trial and all that. So that she asked the question, I was like, gosh, I have more work to do than I thought. But I loved it, and there were ghosts in that one.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And I hate to say the reason why there were ghosts. It was a character, I loved her. Like Tempe, she was the character I got to know first. I got to know her through scenes, and I knew what she wanted, and I knew she would never have it. So I felt for her.
Well, you brought her back as a ghost.
I did. Well, I didn't bring her back. She came back as right. But when she was no longer living, there was like, I knew it before I wrote it that she wasn't going to make it through the story, and I was sitting there crying like, oh my gosh, like it was heartbreaking. And then my daughter's like, is everything okay? And I'm like, it's Tempe. And then she's like, from your book. And I'm like, yeah, she's dying. And she's like, aren't you the one killing her? And I'm like, oh my gosh, no, I wouldn't do that. No, it's a story. It's a certain
story's killing her.
Exactly. But my mother-in-law had said, I'll read anything at all that you write as long as there's no ghosts. And I thought, oh,
no.
You're right. She doesn't have to leave the story. She could stay as a ghost. And so she did.
So how about your other book, Curdle Creek? Now that sounded very different. So what's that one about?
It is. It did start with questions as well.
Okay. What kind of questions?
Have you read The Lottery by Shirley Jackson?
No, I haven't.
So it's a short story, and it is set in, it's kind of timeless. Like, she doesn't exactly say when it is, or where it is. And some things I found really fascinating about it, where even though she never said, like, this is in this particular place, people around that time when it was published in the New Yorker, some people thought she was talking about their town.
Right.
And they were really offended that she would write about their town in this way, which cracks me up because in the story, so I guess it's a bit of a spoiler. It's a small town, a rural town with some really sinister traditions. And one of them is that there's a lottery. The winner of the lottery, well, I guess it's hard to say you win, but what you win is the town throws stones at you.
Oh, that's not an unusual prize.
And there's no reason to think they miss.
Oh, right, okay.
So they have like really good aim.
That's not good.
Yeah, and they've been doing it for a long time, but what they don't know is that like they keep talking about other towns may have, maybe they don't have it anymore. And then they talk bad about them, like, imagine not having a lottery anymore. Like, but they don't go and check. And there's no sense of technology or that link between this town and the next town and the next town. So they're speculating. They forget all sorts of parts of the rituals, but they remember the stones.
Well,
And
it's hard to forget, isn't it, really?
Yeah, but also I found it fascinating because there were older people there, and I thought, how do you do that? Like when I play games now, I cheat. I've always cheated. Like I don't see how my family didn't realize I was like undefeated in Monopoly for like years for no good reason other than I was the banker. And then,
That gives you rather a lot of access to cheating.
it does. I feel like it makes it like it should be part of the role.
Yeah.
Like you're handing out money and you're going one for you, one for me, one for you, 1, 2 for me. But so I feel like in this sort of game it'd be one that you would have to cheat because how do you get to be a certain age in a place where every year they do this ritual, every year they throw stones at someone, and every year you survive? But anyway, that wasn't even the question I was exploring.
No.
It was because, so she doesn't say anyone's ethnicity, and so it means that they could be anything, which I quite like reading something where you're going, oh yeah, like, it's not the sort of story you want to picture yourself in, because sooner or later, you'll win. But I like the option of being in any story that I want to be in. So I liked that in the short story, it was haunting, it was terror. You had these neighbors, people were turning against their own kids. They were going, one of the characters is like, what about my daughter? She should be drawing with our family. They're like, no, she's married, she draws with her husband's family, everybody knows that. And like, she had suddenly this year everything wasn't fine. Like suddenly she, had a problem with the rules. And if you read to the end of the story, you'll see why this year was for her the year that if ever anything was going to change, she wanted it to be this year. And you'll see why nobody else but her wanted it to change this year. But somebody did an adaptation, and they have it on YouTube. And in their adaptation, they introduced questions. One is a truck. And so now, if there's a vehicle, that means people could leave.
Yeah.
Like somebody drives it, right? What makes you come back to this town where one day your name will get called? What makes you not just, be like, all right, everybody, I'm going to go out and get some milk. You might find it suspicious that I have stuff packed in the truck, but I'm carrying the things with me to hold the milk in. My suitcase is a milk container. We'll be back. My whole family and I will be back. Like, yes, we brought our animals with us, but don't be alarmed. We'll be right back. Nobody leaves in that truck. Nobody comes back in that truck. But also, you could go and find out the news. You could at least go to the next town and be like, hey, do y'all still have this? And even if they say, yes, we do, you could come back and be like, no, nobody has it. Because what are they going to do, hop in the truck? So in the whole movie, you see the truck in the beginning. You never see it again. And me, I'm going like, why not just leave? Like, why would you stay? They imagined that, and they couldn't imagine any people of color. Again, as a black woman, it's not a place I wanted to live. So in a way, I guess I should have been fine that they couldn't imagine me in this world. But again, why not? The writer didn't say these people had to be anything. So why did this other person come and adapt it and be like, oh, these people have to be this thing? Why did they put it on the story? So then I thought, well, what would it be like if there were not just black people there, but if it was an all-black town?
So that's how you wrote your story.
That's how I wrote my story.
Influenced by somebody else's idea.
And
in a way, yes.
My book won the Shirley Jackson Award.
Ah, no. Congratulations.
Thank you.
So, in terms of writing itself, do you have any writing routines, things you like to do to help you write? Everybody has routines, don't they?
They do, and it's interesting. So, like, it sounds kind of weird. So, like, I've been a single mom for, like, forever. And so, you know how when people are, like, they have writer's block?
Yeah.
I can't afford that.
Oh, okay.
So like for one, nothing unsticks like a block than knowing you can't afford the luxury of not writing.
Okay.
So like if I'm gonna sit down, I'm gonna write it.
You got the incentive.
Yeah. I also love a deadline. I'm deadline driven.
That's an incentive in itself.
There's something about meeting a deadline that just feels like, oh, and then I reward myself for meeting the deadline, of course. But even if I didn't reward myself, like the meeting of it is also a reward. And then I used to think I had to write after, like, I don't know, at midnight in a full moon in a quiet house or like in the library with the light dim, like, you know, all these different things. And it meant that I didn't get to just go in and write wherever I wanted to. And then I started that I felt like I held on to for a while, even though I had to let it go, like during my PhD when it was like, okay, actually this is due tomorrow or this is due whenever, and I had to break myself from just that little writing container. But something that really helped was taking public transportation.
Okay.
So I'd be on the train, and I know other people would write on the train, and for the longest I wouldn't, because when I write out loud. So characters could be living, laughing, loving, dying, and I'm writing it out loud, and I'm performing it because I'm a failed actor. So I'm performing it in character.
Whilst you write?
Yeah,
Okay.
because I need to hear it. And when I hear it, I hear the rhythms and the pacing and the silence.
You can't really do that on a train.
Well, you can.
Oh, you do.
Yes, you surely can. But so it's the doing it out loud. It's not just reading it. So I can't just say like, and then the dog, you know, walked down the street, barked 3 times, bit the sheriff. Like I can't do it that way. I have to act it out to the character that my character is telling. And then it reminds me of like everything else that's going on. You know how sometimes there'll be like this monologue and this one character wants to be like, oh, you know, after I tell you this 3-page thing, I'm going to kill you. And I'm going like, one, why would you listen? Like, why would you wait 3 pages knowing somebody's going to kill you? Like, what are you doing? Are you just sitting there? Are you just like, this sounds awful. Wow. And then you're going to kill me? Oh my goodness. Wow. Okay. And when you were 5, you did whatever. Yeah. And now you're 96 and you're going through each age. No, there's no rush. I mean, clearly there's no rush. You're going to kill them at the end. But like, I'm always wondering like what's happening in that space. So if I read it out loud, I'm remembering that other person, their heart is like pounding. They should also be looking for weapons. They should be using their time wisely. So if they were in this room, they should be looking at chairs. They should be looking at like what's loose that I can pick up, or exits, like where can I run to? Like, they should be throwing those cups, like all sorts of different things. And it reminds me of like the setting and stuff like that. But the way I now know that I can write on a train.
Yeah.
So if anyone's been on the train lately, you may have noticed that other people are on the train with you. And they're on the train talking. They're on the phone.
On the phone.
Yep, so they're on the phone, and then sometimes you can hear them and the person they're on the phone with. And so, like, there's no secrets between them, or, like, between all of us, because I'm on the train, too. And they're going, I don't know, what did the doctor say you had? Oh, yes, it's this, and, like, and you're hearing, like, diagnosis, you're hearing treatments, you're hearing everything. I know the last 4 digits of so many credit cards. I know passwords. I know the mother's maiden name. I feel like if I rode the same train at the same time with the same people, I'd be able to, like, crack into something of theirs. I don't know, sit up in their living room one day like, hey, I was really surprised when you were on the train and you said that your key was under the mat. I just thought, surely that wasn't it. And then you gave your address the week after that. And so I thought, let me see if your key was. And it was. You're out of milk. So they're on the train having these conversations. And they're not at all going, oh, you know what, there's other people on the train. I don't want to bother them. I don't want to inconvenience them by saying, why am I letting them inconvenience me? And it's not them. They're not saying, oh, you can't write on the train. It's me doing that to me. So now when I'm on the train, I perpetually write murder on the LNER. So much fun. Just so, especially in character, when you're there and you're talking about characters die on the train all the time, right?
It's a really odd looks.
Yes and no. So people try to catch your eye to make sure that you're not, not writing about them. And I refuse to look. So, and sometimes I'll be like, which means I really can't see you. So I'm like, and then he sat down next to her and he was a little too close. And before he knew it, he was dead. And then they're like, so it's a lot of fun, but I write on the train now, and I write wherever. I also try to write every day from 5:55 in the morning to 6:55 in the morning.
Wow, that's quite a discipline.
It
Are you an early
is.
riser then?
I never was. I never was before. And I never wanted to be a 5 a.m. writer because something about it offended me. Just like being up at 5 a.m. and like on my laptop. Like, I don't know if you've tried it. My eyes don't even work at that time of morning. Like, I'll be looking at the laptop and they start moving and like it's too bright. Then I make it lower and then it's too dark. And then I make it. So like my eyes were just like, we should be asleep. That's why we're not working. But 555, if you look at a digital clock, it looks so nice. It's like, it's like, you can't look at it and not smile and not feel like, oh, I don't know, it just feels like the start of something good. But if there was a 666 or a 777, I would still have to, I'd be like, oh, it's 777. But I couldn't do 1010 because in my day, I'll probably have a meeting. 1111, like, I don't know, sometimes there's like classes to teach and stuff like that. But 5:55 is the time that I usually won't have anything else that I have to do. I don't have to be anyone else for anyone else. I can just be me and it's the page. I absolutely love it. But initially I put out a call on social media because I was like, wow, I'm going to be up at basically the crack of dawn. Will anyone else in the world write with me? And people were like, yes.
Oh, wow.
So strangers, but they were also some of them in different time zones.
Right.
So they're like, yeah, 5:55 in the morning, woo. And you're like, what time is it for you? They're like 9 o'clock. And you're just like, But like people they joined from like all over.
Wow.
And it was really great because there was something about knowing they were there. But also, like people talk about it being accountability. And I guess in a way it was, but not in the writing part of it. It was that I had it on Zoom and they couldn't get in unless I let them in.
Yeah.
And I would picture them being outside. You know it's not the case, right? But I would picture them being like outside a physical Zoom room. Like, oh my gosh, will she just let us in? Where is she? Is she sleeping? How is she sleeping? It's so early in the morning and I'm so cold and it's so dark. And I would be like, oh, I can't sleep in. I have to get these people. Like, if I would have thought of them in their living room, able to write whether or not I opened it or not, I probably wouldn't have got up. But because like my mind is weird sometimes, I had to get up and let them in. And then I'm far more sociable at that time of morning than I ever would have thought. Like I would be talking to them. I hadn't even had coffee. And I'm like talking and we would talk through writing things and then we'd write and at the end we'd talk about like, how was it? And then we would end up having like these really nice chats about writing. So all of that is my writing routine. I don't write with that same 5:55 group. Now I write with a different one, but it's still like early in the morning. So now it's like 5:55, I might come in, and by 6 we're writing. But I also go outside. I go out, I feed the birds. So my writing isn't always the typing that I do. I can be outside feeding the birds because I often write about my garden is doing some amazing things. Not me, but my garden is doing some amazing things on its own. Like it's quite the survivor. Whereas I feel like it sees me coming and it's like, oh no. Because I'm like, ooh, wouldn't it be nice to have a plant here or this here? And I put stuff in, I call it the potted wild because I'm renting and I know when I leave I want to take my plants with me. So they're in these like pots and I put whatever's in there. And then the animals that like visit my cafe, they move things around. So now I feel like I really do need to move the signs because I'm sure what's growing is not what I planted or what I bought. But it's all part of my day. And I come in and I reflect on the morning and the sounds and the songs and kind of like what it gave me and what I'm giving it and what I'm learning about this relationship with nature.
Sounds like it's really working for you.
It really is. I feel more connected. Like I get to know places. What makes a place feel like home for me are the stories. So I feel like wherever I go, in Dewsbury I had a true story open mic night. And that's one, because I like being read to, but also because I get to know Dewsbury through its stories. Not the stories that it tells about itself, but the stories that people tell about living and, walking through the streets and, I don't know, used to go to school here and used to shop here and used to do, so something about those stories makes the place feel like home. And now being in the garden and the stories that I write about it and the time I spend in it makes where I live feel like home. And that's the feeling I've been searching for ever since I was 16.
Wow. So what is an open mic session for those people that don't really know what that is?
Ooh, Sarah, it's a true story. This one is a true story open mic night. And it's a place where you come and you would share, so mine are 3 to 5 minutes, the true story that people share. So it's true, I always say, so it's a story you would tell at the pub, only sober. So it's like, I don't know, I did this thing today, or you'll never believe who I ran into. And then that 3 to 5 minutes might be the story of that. It could be the story of someone's first love, or their first job, or their last this, or their last that. Kind of anything. Like, everybody has a story. It's typically loosely exploring a theme, but the theme might be like home, or firsts, or holiday, or vacation. Something like really that can be, you know, taken in any number of ways. And the stories people share. There's something about that, that generosity of sharing stories, but also I think it's that vulnerability. So these are in person, and I don't record them because.
Well, no, for privacy, yeah.
Right. Well, and it's like Vegas. So that story that they tell in that space is very, it's space appropriate in that they know who's in the room.
Right.
So they know that if they were talking about something that was really, you know, really hard for them to say, they knew who they're saying it to, and it makes them feel like, okay, this is a safe space. But as soon as I go, this is a safe space, and then it'll be broadcast or not, then it's like, it's no longer, you know, that sort of relationship. So I always have them like in person, no recording of it, and it just means people can share that thing that they most want to share. It really makes the place feel like home, because there's, at the end of the day, what people want is often like love, acceptance, community, a place that feels like home. They want to be understood. So it reminds us kind of that no matter what that person looks like or where you think they're from, you have so much in common. I like it because I don't introduce people. So I'll say, and the next reader is, and it's their first name. And they can say, hi, I'm so-and-so, and I used to do this thing, or I do that, and whatever. But it's not expected. It's not the expectation at all. So if they, I feel like we learn about them, and even their past and their jobs and whatever, through the story they tell. But because I don't introduce them, they also don't introduce each other. So they'll be like, hi, I'm Pam, and it's, you know, and then you have the story, and it's just absolutely lovely.
So how does doing open mic sessions like that feed back into your own writing?
Well, their stories don't come into mine,
No.
because I feel like their stories
Yeah.
are their stories, and I want them to write their stories. But I write a story for my open mic.
Right.
And what I love about it, so there's something with creative nonfiction that I use it to kind of tap into, what do I want? How am I doing? How am I feeling? What am I willing to do to get what I want? So like I look at it as a way back to myself.
Okay, so those who don't understand what creative non-fiction is, what is that?
So they're true stories using storytelling techniques. So if I'm writing about, let's say the theme is gardens, and I might think I'm going to write about feeding the birds and like the practicalities of ordering food and ordering plants and ordering dirt, and when there's actually dirt in the garden already. And like I might be thinking about those practical things, and then I might end up talking about not just the birds, but like what bird was there, and the singing and the fluttering of wings. And you know how like when you're really close to a bird, depending on the size of the bird and kind of how close you are, you can feel them. And sometimes it's like the flutter of them. And so I might write about like that fluttering feeling of it. And I might write about the wings. So like when I open the door, there could be doves in the tree. And it's not even when I open the door. I feel like as soon as they feel me about to open the door, they fly off. And sometimes it's with a coo, and sometimes it's with that fluttering. But then I often think about like, what did we do to them that like even the thought of the presence scares them away. So if I'm writing this in creative nonfiction, I will write about the sounds, how it feels. I'll write about the smells. I will write about kind of the character. So I'm a character moving through this space. Everything is still true. I'm just bringing you along with me. If I was writing it with nonfiction without the creative part, I would probably write, today I fed the birds at 6:03 in the morning. It was a dark, cold morning. I ran out of bird food. There were 6 squirrels in a plane flew overhead. It's a different story.
It's quite bare, isn't it, in
It
comparison?
is, right, but it's still true. It's still, these are the things that happen. The difference is how I tell it,
It's how
and
you bring it alive, really.
how I bring you with me. I think that the first version is maybe this is what happened, now you know. And the next one is more, this is what happened, and while you know that, maybe it also inspires you to think about your morning and how you move through time and how nature moves through you.
Okay. So, on some of the books that you've written, like one about slavery in particular, how much research did you have to do for something like that? I mean, do you like doing research?
Yes, I do. I guess I'm curious. So I'm curiosity led. So that whole project was my creative writing PhD.
Okay.
So I wrote the book, and also you write a critical kind of thesis that goes along with it. Some about the book or the themes and the topics and other reading that you've done and stuff like that. And the research is also the writing part. So, well, I love that part, right? Like I love the writing as a research, but the research that I did was one for, the story is told in 24 hours.
Right.
So that's the present, 1910. So I had to research 1910 Philadelphia, which is a lot different than the Philadelphia I knew. I was born in Philadelphia, and I was there for like 4 years. So the Philadelphia I saw in 4 years was very different than Philadelphia like 1910. But my grandmother had 2 houses in Philadelphia, and so I knew I wanted to kind of write a little bit but even her Philadelphia was different than that Philadelphia. So I had to do a lot of research. I had to do medical research, because I said the characters they had this herb that they could use that would make them not be able to have children, but it was also a different sort of poison. So I had to do like medical research. I had to do research on laws. Like there were laws enacted that meant that enslaved people or formerly enslaved people couldn't travel very far. So I did lots of research on that. I read some of the slavery narratives. I read newspapers. I did like lots and lots of that research.
Sounds like you did a lot of research.
Yeah, but it was always like it was always heartbreaking. Like some of the things that the laws that people would enact in order to oppress other people was just like mind blowing. That there were so many systems involved in it was just like wow. But so all the research was really useful and was really moving, and some made its way into the book, and others made its way into at least me knowing about the time period. So it's also 1840 to 1864. So it's a frame narrative. The frame is 1910, and what it's framing is 24 years in this American slaveholding past. And that was because I wanted to write about the emancipation and what that might have been like for characters who had no reason to believe it was ever going to come.
Okay. So let's look at your career now then. So how did saying yes to yourself help shape your career?
I have had so much fun. And I think it's because when I went back to college at first, I went back, and I didn't recognize it then, but I went really quickly, and I was trying to catch up with myself. So I was momming and working and studying, and I did everything kind of like it was a race. So it was drop off the kids, run to the class, run to the library, do whatever. I could not tell you anybody that was in that class. Like, unless we were in a group project, I probably never spoke to them. And then I would run to the library and not linger and do all that. I knew the book I was going to get, where it was, and like all that. I got the book and I left. And then that was like undergrad. My master's, probably with the same speed. It was a part-time program, and I was doing it as if it was full-time.
Oh.
So it was meant to be a 2-year program. After 1 year, I was just about finished, but I still would have had to do the thesis, which would have been the next year. I just was not going to have any classes, just going to be like a year of writing, because I had done it so quickly. And then they said they had a class in Florence, the one that you could only take if you hadn't taken anything else before. And the classes that I could take one was like sentence power. And they were breaking down the sentence down to like its very core, like word by word and article by article, and really getting like intimate with the sentence. And I didn't want to take it then, and I don't want to take it now. Like, I'm still consistent. I'm like, no, thank you. But the only other one was creative nonfiction, and I wasn't familiar with it at the time. I wasn't writing it or listening to it, and I took it because it was going to be in Italy, and I felt like Italy was my spirit place. Like, you know how there's sometimes a place that you just want to go? Italy was, for me, the place I just wanted to go. No logical reason, not even because of a time period or a building or an artwork. I just felt like I wanted to be there. So I took the class, and it changed everything for me. What I started doing that I hadn't done was, so I don't plot my fiction, but now whenever I'm making a decision, I plot it. And it was because when I was there and the professor said, of the book that I was writing that had 3 characters, and so three main characters, and then so of course 3 minor characters, and everybody, it was a bit of a tangle. And the professor said, who's the main character and what does she want? And then like, so sitting through that and then realizing that this book was so much of me on the page, it made me ask, what do I want? And I hadn't asked that in so long. It was odd because as a professional little sister, I feel like it was a question I had asked consistently for, a good many years. And then I stopped and didn't realize I had stopped. So it made me look at, so if I'm the main character of my life, what do I want? And then I would like write it down, and then I'm like, why don't I have it? And then I could write down those obstacles, and then what am I willing to do to get it? And then I could write through solutions. But it also made me remember that the people in my life who probably would not want to be called minor characters, but since they're not here, the minor characters in my life also have things that they want. And it's not always what I want. And that's fine. So it reminds me of that on the page. So I started doing like that while I was in Florence, and I knew answers that I hadn't known before. Like I knew what I wanted when I got back. I knew what was probably going to happen, and those things came true. And then when I came back as a different student because I had gone there with other students that now I knew. And I knew their names. I got to know their stories. They were reading their work, so it was that vulnerability. And creative nonfiction does feel more vulnerable than fiction. So like we had this trust, and all in 9 days. It was absolutely beautiful. And then from that, we went to an event in Chicago together. We went to that together. I still know them too. I went to Iowa to their summer writers program for 3 weeks because it was like, oh my gosh, a sense of community. I like that, and I want more of it. I went to Bread Loaf, which was like a weekend retreat at the time. Now I think it's like 10 days, but it was amazing. And all of that brought me more into that community. So I still finished I added creative nonfiction to my master's. So I have dual concentrations, fiction and creative nonfiction, because of that class. And then I kind of thought I was finished when I finished the master's. And then if you wanted to teach in the U.S., they were like, you either had to have an MFA or a PhD. And Yvonne Battle-Felton, MA, MFA, kind of didn't do anything for me. It didn't make me feel like, ooh, but Dr. Yvonne Battle-Felton was like, oh, I like how that feels. Like, I like how it sounds. I like how, I could get behind that. So I did the PhD, but I knew I was going to, do the PhD. Immerse myself as a student, immerse myself as a writer, and I said yes to so many things. So as you can tell, I'm a talker. I went to the student union because Lancaster University had a radio station. Okay. And I say had because I believe they may not have it anymore. But it was fantastic. And so I spoke to them, and then I got to have a radio show called The Writing Life, where I interviewed writers about how to make a living with their words. That one I felt like was pretty obvious because I wanted to know how to make a living with my words, and I needed to talk to people who were making a living with their words. So I did that. I had a project where actors acted out the draft, because I like stuff like that. So they would act out your work in progress, and I felt like it was really good as a writer to see oh, okay, this is going on in the work, this isn't going on in the work. I convinced a friend that we needed a true story open mic night in Lancaster, because I was listening to The Moth, and she was going through her period of no when I was going through my period of yes. So she was like, oh, no. And I'd be like, it's off campus. And she was like, oh, no, off campus. But when she left, she had to leave off campus. Everything that I wanted to do was in town. And that, for other people, was no. If it was on campus, I feel like it would still been no. But off campus was easier to say no to. I said we needed a literary salon where people read to me, because I like that. And I wanted music and food and that sense of an experience. And first she was like, no. And then she said, you know what? I don't even know why I'm saying no. It's just my go-to answer. It's just the first thing that comes. And she's like, I'm going to start saying yes. And her spirit of yeses was still, I was still in my spirit of yeses. So we created a monthly literary salon, a monthly true story open mic night, all these different things. And at the end of it, we had a CIC. We created a community interest community interest company around bringing people together over stories and platforms and publishing. So it was all because of those yeses of like, do you want to do this thing with the business team? Sure, like why not? Do you want to do this thing with the Dukes, the theater? I said yes to that. It was like coming to a, one of the like the directors shows where you get to talk to the actors and the directors like after it. And I had said yes to that, and then from saying yes to that, I ended up being able to teach a playwriting course with them, and did a residency. So the residency where I was writing a ridiculous play that I may or may not go back to, and I got to see actors bring that to life.
All right, so your period of saying yes is what led to you teaching creative writing ultimately?
It did, because I was still teaching, and I wasn't sure how the PhD was going to translate into a teaching, path, and I also wasn't sure if I wanted it to. So I knew I wanted to make my living with words. I just wasn't sure how and what that was going to look like. And then a former colleague was like, would I talk at I think it was University English. They were having a conference, and I was like, sure, that I would do it. I wasn't even going to the conference, but I was like, sure, I'll do it, because it was on campus, and I really had no reason not to do it. So I did it, and then actually I ended up being later interviewed by somebody who was in that room for a position at Sheffield Hallam. So all of my yeses, but also all of my questions have led to opportunities later. So when I'm chairing events, or I get to be commissioned doing I was commissioned doing like a short story for kids, and I got to talk to educators about how to teach kids creative writing, and all those things that I get to do have been from yeses I said in the past. So I still go through my period of saying yes more often than I say no, but now I do think I'm a little bit more measured, like maybe a little bit more like, oh, can I really be two places at once, and can I really do this thing? But if I believe in it, I would try to find a way to say yes.
So how did you end up being involved in teaching creative writing for Cambridge University then?
I rather love the way that sounds. So they had a position for, it was then ICE, the Institute of Continuing Education, and on paper it was like everything, because it was adult education, and I went back to school as, here they would have called it an adult learner. In the US, you were just a student, which I think I really liked that, because if I'd had a label, adult learner or mature learner, I don't know what that would have done. I don't know if I would have been like, oh, I don't know. I didn't feel particularly mature at the time, but there, at least it didn't have any labels. But reading it, what they want to do, it's like making an inclusive place for education, being part of saying yes to people, making them realize that higher education is possible, and lifelong learning is something you do for your life. And when I read it on paper, I was like, wow, that's great. The position is wonderful, but it is Cambridge, and it is in Cambridge, and I'm in Dewsbury, and so I was like, no. And then a friend of mine was like, so have you applied yet? And I'm like, no, it's in Cambridge, and I'm not. And she was like, no, I'm really surprised. I looked at it, and you were the first person I thought of, and I'm like, I don't know, it's awfully far away. And then I was thinking of the commute, and she was like, look at it again. And I looked at it, and it was like everything I wanted to do about community, and it's something about empowering people. And for so much, one thing I got from the True Story open mic night was I was surprised that some people thought they didn't have a story to tell. And they thought that they didn't have a right to tell their story. And in Lancaster, people would say, I've never climbed a mountain. Nobody wants to hear what I say. No, I've never climbed a mountain. I don't have a story about this. No, I've never And there's no mountain in Lancaster. And I was like, how have none of y'all climbed this mythical mountain? And how is this everybody's thing when there's no mountain here? And then we got somebody who had climbed a mountain. Well, I guess sort of, because he fell down. And so he was climbing a mountain.
Yes.
And he fell down in this like spectacular, like life or death sort of way. But the way he talked about it was absolutely fantastic. He had you laughing at like him tumbling over, but he brought you with it. And it was like, for people who had thought they didn't have a story because they didn't climb a mountain, it was perfect because like we couldn't have planned it better. So helping people who think, oh, I shouldn't go back to university, or it's too late for me. I don't know if anyone's still on X, formerly Twitter, but I remember reading things and like people would post to people that they don't even know, do you think I should go back to school, or do you think it's too late? And they're letting strangers say, yeah, it's too late, you missed it. Or, go ahead, you know what? But like, I don't want them to have to go to like to the universe and say, should I? I want there to be classes there. So applying to it, she was right. It was the perfect thing. It also helped that I was at Sheffield Hallam and I was looking at their path to professorship. And at the time, they didn't want to celebrate progression. And I knew I didn't want to be at a place where you don't celebrate success. A place that makes you feel like you've done this, so what? Or what else have you done, or what else can I want to feel celebrated when I do things worth celebrating. So Cambridge to me felt like, why not? And so I said yes.
Excellent. So what advice would you give to anybody who wants to write a book?
Well, I think a couple of things. One would be keep reading, because I feel like when so I used to be an editor for Hachette, and I was commissioning literary fiction. And people would come and they would either think nobody's publishing me anymore, or nobody's publishing the books that I want to write, or how do I get published? And it seems that there's no shortcut to it. There's no one path to it. So the writing part, I would say, of course, read. And it's great when people are reading classics, but also you want to read contemporary books too, because as an editor, if you say, like I can't walk into a room where I'm pitching to other editors and rights people and marketing, you're gonna love this book. It's like the Bible. They will be like, if you don't get out of here. Like I have to be able to pitch it to something that's, recent, something that I can say, maybe find sales figures for, I can find the demographics for. So much of writing and so much of publishing is pitching, like selling books. So if someone's going, yeah, I want to write this book and I've always wanted to write this book, the first thing is, or I guess along with it, is keep reading and looking at like who's writing what you're writing, but also you're reading as a form of research, because you're like, what works for me as a reader? What resonates for me? How do I like to be told a story? Do I really like the tension? Do I really like characters? Do I really like setting? Do I love a good mystery? Do I love a good twist? Like what resonates for me? And then what could I do? Like what would this technique be like in my own hands? Because you're getting more and more curious. In terms of the physical writing part, don't get hung up on the end of the book. Like I think a lot of times people go, I'm going to sit down, I'm going to write a book. Maybe if we don't kind of label the thing and then let the thing be what it wants to be. So maybe you start with your story. Like I've always wanted to write about a bank robbery. Great, write about the bank robbery. Consider where it is and who are your characters, what interests you, and then start writing that and see what the characters want to do. For me, it's always easier to write when I know my characters, because then I know what they want, why they don't have it, what they're willing to do to get it, and then I can know where their boundaries are and not necessarily push them to it, but see what happens when they do get pushed to it. But if you sit down and go, I have to finish this book today, or I have to finish this book in 3 weeks or 3 months, or whatever, I think it becomes more of a burden to do. But if you say, I'm going to sit down, or I get to sit down and write today, and I'm going to, write for 10 minutes a day, or 10 minutes every other day, or 30 minutes a week, or like whatever that is, you approach it with that sense of curiosity and that sense of exploration, and see what the page unfolds. And then I think you don't have to be so afraid of like a blank page, because a blank page is only blank until you write something on it. So maybe you scribble on it or type a little dot or whatever. Now it's no longer blank. Great, you solved that problem, and you can start writing.
Yeah, I think a lot of writers are hung up about rules and structure and how it should be done, rather than actually just letting you explore it.
And I think for a
on
draft,
page.
you should be able to explore, because a draft is that's maybe that first iteration of the story. And if you think about stories that you tell to people that you love, and you think about like that first version of the story might include so much into it, and then you might go home and be like, I forgot to say this thing. Okay, great. That next version of that story might include that part and these other things. And then you go, oh my goodness, I forgot to tell them this other thing. And then that third version might include like all these other things. And writing is a lot like that. When I'm doing a draft, what I try to do is just, so I'm writing for that hour, and then if I get other time to write, great, I'll write, whenever I can. I'm curious, I don't plot, so I'm never sure what's gonna happen when I get to the page.
You're a pantser like me then.
Yeah, but I feel like that way I'm going, ooh, what do they have in store? Or who's still alive? Like, let's see who survived the night. And then I can write because I wanna, my books are not as dark as that, but I can write and try to, figure out what's gonna happen. And then I don't feel like, I know some people like word counts, and they'll be like, oh, I'm gonna write 1,000 words and then I'm done, or, whatever, 12,000 words and then I'm done. And that's fine, whatever your thing is. For me, it's not that. It is like that, usually time or a feeling like, oh, I wanna get through this scene and I'm gonna like just write till I get to it, and then, I have to do this other thing. But I try to be kind to myself. So in my draft, I might not know how the body got in the living room. And I try not to worry about it then. Like, so I'll write, and then when I get like stuck and I'm like, oh, this part doesn't really make sense, I'll put like a little pin in it or a little like parentheses where I'll say like, you'll need to come back to this, and then I can, come back to it. But what I found in editing, so be generous to yourself when you're writing. A draft is a draft, and when you're editing, I think the easiest way to me to look at editing when I give it to other people and I'm getting feedback, one is to appreciate that they're reading it, but they do not have the benefit of being in my head. So they don't see the trickling fall the same way I do. The thing that I'm thinking is really dangerous, maybe it's not articulated yet. They didn't grow up where I grew up in, so like if I'm trying to tell them about New Jersey, they have an idea of New Jersey in their head. And it's very seldom my New Jersey. And it's okay if they, if they're going, wow, I was really looking for this industrial whatever, and I'm like, that's not my New Jersey. But then I have to show them mine. So it's not necessarily that the piece is, it's no good, it's no whatever. It's just that it's not translating yet. And that's fine. You can do that work of translating it. So be kind to yourself, find time, and it's your time. So my 5:55 is great for me. You find that time that's great for you. And that's the time, like, I don't worry about the rules when I'm first doing it. And I try not to worry about what it's going to be either, like the genre.
Okay.
Because I feel like if I sit down and I go, I'm going to write a gothic horror, I feel like the characters go, no thank you. I don't actually want to be in a gothic horror. Like, I'm quite fancy in a romance. And you're going like, look, you're dying on page 7. Nobody cares what you want. But actually, I do care what they want. So I write, and then I think I figure it out on the way. Like, oh, this is this and this is that. And so basically just write.
Thank you very much. Absolutely fascinating.
Thank you.
And I've had
Wonderful
a lot of fun
questions.
talking to you. So
I've had fun talking to you too. Thank you so much for
okay.
this.
I hope everybody's enjoyed themselves this afternoon. Thank you for joining us.
May I ask a question?
Of course.
I was very interested about Remembered, and you say the lead character, who would ensure the children didn't continue their lives in slavery. Was that actually based on sort of anecdotal stories, or was that pure imagination?
That's pure imagination.
Oh, how disappointing.
I know. I would
that
like
would
to
be
think.
wonderful.
I know. I mean, people had like different forms of agency, and I guess people took, varying levels of risk. But no, but she was just, it worked for her. Like,
Yes,
you know what I mean?
yes.
So as her character, that's what she wanted to do.
And no doubt, especially they're not getting pregnant, re-inducing abortion, probably did, as far as they could,
Yeah.
would have happened.
Yep. And I think that one, there is either evidence or there's been like evidence or diaries where people have spoken about like either like ways to abort the baby so that they
Yeah.
weren't born enslaved.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep. You're welcome. Were there any other questions that anyone want to ask?
I think you're
Wonderful.
stunned. I'm sure Yvonne will I'll be around for a few minutes if everybody wants to come and ask questions. Or I will ask more questions about slavery.
Otherwise, I'm on social media too, so you can always message me there.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Great.
Yeah, it's been lovely.